I admit that I never thought twice about woodpeckers' brains until after I began to think twice about how susceptible the human brain is to injury. As a matter of fact, I perceive the idiom bird brain as a compliment and long for the day that someone directs this phrase at me. I don't think of a person who lacks intelligence or who makes unwise choices as a bird brain. I think of a person who has enhanced gray matter as a bird brain. Simply put, a bird brain is a super brain. Now I want to go back to the word enhanced. If you look up the synonyms for it, you see a list of about 20 words, including the following two: inflate and strengthen. When I began studying the brain and how it suffers a concussion, my first thoughts were that a helmet doesn't do a damn thing. We need to cushion our brains with bubble wrap. This covering will inflate them enough to create a tight fit and protect them from slamming into the walls of our skulls. Take a good look at an MRI showing the cross-section of the brain. The white stuff outlining it is the skull, and the gray stuff with curves is the brain. The space between the curves and the skull is the fluid-filled space. This fluid-filled space provides enough wiggle room to treat the brain like a small rubber ball being hit against a wall. In 1985, my maternal grandmother fell in a parking lot and hit the back of her head on the sidewalk. I wasn't there, but my mom told me that she was horrified as she watched her mom's head bounce off the cement like a golf ball. This blow to the back of my grandmother's head jump-started a state of progressive mental deterioration that we later confirmed was Alzheimer's disease. In my role as a personal trainer, I work with people who have been diagnosed with various forms of cognitive impairment. One of my first clients of this nature had early onset Alzheimer's. We openly talked about the illness, and I once asked her if she had ever suffered a hard hit to her head. I added that I was making my inquiry because of what had happened to my grandmother 24 years before. She said that she had been out for one of her routine bike rides, took a spill, and hit her head on a rock. The impact was so great that it dented her helmet. Then she added that everybody thought she was nuts because she believed it was that blow to her head that fired up her Alzheimer's. I am not a neuropathologist, but I see these two incidents as a pattern. After all, two chain links make a chain and allow for more links to be added. For more than 25 years, it is estimated that Mike Webster sustained the equivalent of over 25,000 automobile crashes playing football at the high school, college, and professional levels. His doctors were of the opinion that these multiple concussions during his career damaged his frontal lobe which caused cognitive dysfunction. Yes, Iron Mike weathered many more blows to his head than my grandmother and beloved client. But it only took one nuclear bomb to decimate Hiroshima, and I think the destruction of one blow to the brain is equivalent to that of an atomic bomb. Now back to my friend, the woodpecker. I envy the woodpecker because its skull and tongue protect its brain from injury. Inside the skull bone of a woodpecker is a large amount of spongy bone. This light, porous bone consists of a network of thin, flat plates of bone, which act like a built-in football helmet that protects their gray matter. Then there is the woodpecker's tongue. The hyoid bone is a strong, flexible bone covered in muscle. It begins in the nostril of the upper beak, where it divides into two parts between the eyes, and then travels over the top of the skull and around the back. At the base of the skull, the separate pieces rejoin and attach to the muscle of the tongue. The woodpecker uses the hyoid bone to protect its brain from neurological trauma. First, when the woodpecker pecks, the muscles surrounding the relaxed hyoid bone contract, propelling the tongue forward inside the beak. This tension stabilizes the cranium and spine, acting as a seatbelt to prevent excessive movements of the brain. Second, the hyoid bone design diverts vibrations and any forceful impact away from the cranium. Because of its long length, the upper beak absorbs more of the shock than the lower beak when striking a surface. The forces then travel up the beak, where they encounter the hyoid bone in the nostril before they hit the spongy bone in the skull. The stress forces then travel along the path of the hyoid bone rather than continuing to the skull, diffusing into the muscles covering the bone or traveling to the tongue. So simply put, the woodpecker's brain is protected by bone bubble wrap.